Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again, and I could not be more excited to share this recipe with you. This is a chocolate chip cookie recipe, but it is gluten-free. And trust me when I say nobody is going to detect the fact that it's gluten-free. The flour we're using is simply ground up whole oats, and so it's not like there's something funky in there, some fillers or some kind of gluten-free something that came from the bottom of a riverbed or so, I don't know. But this is just ingredients you'd use in other cookies, but there's no wheat flour in it. So I'm going to get started by grinding up my rolled oats. I just keep these in a big container. I may have to go out to the garage and get more. But I'm going to need 1 3/4 cups of ground oat flour. So usually it measures out about the same, but we'll see. We'll measure it before we get going on the recipe. Now this is my Vitamix dry container, and it's a little bit shorter and squattier than my other tall one that I normally use. But this is just, it's got a different blade in it. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but it's for dry things. So we're going to grind this up. It's a little loud, so the dogs are going to freak out. But we will get this going. This is what the front of my Vitamix looks like. Oops. They ran to the other side of the room like that was going to protect them. Okay, now this does have a pusher with it that I can use by taking this top off. If you don't have a Vitamix and just really want a good high-speed blender, I can't even recommend this highly enough. We use it for so many things. But take the top off, the pusher goes down in there, and it does not touch the blades. There's no way for it to if you leave it on, leave the lid in place. So let's do this one more time just to get it ground up all the way. All right, we'll see how much of that it made. Actually, I can tell by looking in here because it has a measuring line on it. It's about 1 3/4 cups. Yeah, just like we're supposed to have. You know what? I'm just going to leave that in there. I'm not even going to pour it in a different cup. Dirty anything else. So I am going to get a mixing bowl. Now, you don't have to use a hand mixer for this. You could do this by hand just with a spatula, but I'm going to go ahead and use a mixer on this. All right, I'm going to take a minute to get all my stuff together, but we'll be right back. All right, we're back. I had to go put my stick of butter on top of the dryer that was running just to soften it a little bit more. I didn't think it was quite soft enough, and I think it is now. All right, so 1 stick of butter. Keep in mind, I am making half a recipe. I haven't said that before, but this is half a recipe. This actually makes quite a few cookies, but I don't necessarily need that many cookies. This is it's a gift for a friend of mine who helped me out. Okay, here's the story. So we had our small group Bible study last night, and everybody was walking in the house. I grabbed one of the guys that is just about to graduate with his degree in physical therapy, and I said, hey, come here. I don't know what's wrong with my ankle, but it's big and fat. I don't have big fat ankles, but I got one that's big and fat right now, and it is so puffy. It feels like it's about to bust out of my shoe. So he sits there, and he's so sweet, and he kind of manipulates my foot. He's asking me questions. He acts like there's nothing else going on in my living room. There's 15 other people in there, and everybody's kind of watching. And he basically told me I have a sprained ankle. Now, I've never had a sprained ankle before in my life. I've never had a broken bone before. So I didn't know what was going on. I just thought my ankle keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it hurts a lot. So he was so sweet. He told me that I don't really want to say his best guess, but he didn't act like he knew what he was talking about as far as that goes. He didn't act like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. But he just said, from what I can tell, I think you have a sprained ankle, but it's kind of an unusual sprain because it's behind my ankle instead of in front of it where most people do it. I don't even have a clue when I did this because he kept asking me, did you twist your foot? Did you fall off something? I was like, no. I mean, I'm forever almost falling when I'm doing yard work, but I don't know what I did with my foot. Anyway, so that's the scoop. He was so sweet in doing that, and he didn't have to do that. I'm very cautious about asking my doctor friends for favors while I'm at their house or they're at my house because I don't like to do things that way. That's not, if they volunteer to look at something for me, that's one thing, but I am not about abusing our friendship to try to get a free office visit out of it. I don't do things that way. But he was so sweet and did not have to do that. He could have just said, oh, we're running a little bit late or whatever, and just sat down. But he was very kind. And there is a gluten sensitivity in their household. That's why we're doing the gluten-free cookies. So when I show up and drop I'm not going to show up at their house with them there, but I'm going to drop these off on their porch, and they both get to enjoy these, he and his sweet little wife, because they don't have to worry about the gluten thing. So I'm so excited about it. I can't stand it. Okay, so we have our half cup of softened butter in there, and I think I'm going to mix this up just a little bit so it doesn't fly all over the kitchen whenever I put the sugar in it. I'm doing this in a clear glass bowl only so you can see what's going on in there. I don't normally mix things up in a clear glass bowl. Okay, that's scattered out just enough to where it won't make a mess when I put the brown sugar in. This is the brown sugar that I did a video on the other day. I think I was making oatmeal raisin cookies, and my brown sugar was literally as hard as a rock, and I put a little roll in there, a little homemade roll. I just stuck it in the bag, zipped it closed, and by the end of, I think it was Saturday, let's see, was it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday? I think it was it 3 days after? I can't remember how long ago. Anyway, it was 2 or 3 days later. This is the brown sugar from my bag. This is what was hard as a rock, and this was after putting a little piece of bread in there. So just so you know, it really does work. If it worked on that bag of brown sugar, I'm telling you, it'll work on anything. So the size recipe that I'm making calls for a cup of brown sugar. If you do not have brown sugar, don't panic. Don't say, oh, I can't make those. I don't have any brown sugar, because you can take a cup of regular sugar. I would encourage you to consider using an unbleached natural sugar like Zolka from your big store in town, just not a bleached white sugar. But 1 cup of sugar and 2 tablespoons of molasses, you'll have brown sugar. You don't even have to stir it all together. Just add it right directly into this recipe. Okay, there is our brown sugar. I packed it in there a little bit by pressing it on the side of the container. I think you probably caught that. Set that aside, and we're going to beat this until it's light and creamy. sorry I keep checking this, but I have to make sure that my microphone is still going because I'm down to one little mark on my battery. And I don't want to change it out in the middle of a video. All right, next thing we need is an egg. And I always try to break mine into a separate container, not directly on whatever I'm making, because if I get a piece of shell in there or a piece of straw from the chicken bed or whatever's on the egg, I don't want it in that. I also need a half a teaspoon of vanilla, so I'm going to get my medicine dropper out of here. That's what we use to measure out our vanilla with. My jar of homemade vanilla. Ooh, it's got lots of seeds in that. Okay, half teaspoon of vanilla. And the one egg. And we'll beat this again. That looks pretty light and creamy. I'll see if I can show that to you. That's what it looks like. I kind of want to start that water, or not water, but that sugar from, start the sugar dissolving in there, and that's what we do when we get that egg going in there. At least it's enough liquid to, when it meets that sugar, it starts the dissolving process a little bit. I just don't like those big grains of sugar to be in a cookie by the end of the whole story. All right, I'm going to get a container and add our dry ingredients together. And we need a half a cup of whole oats. Now this is going to be our whole oats that like we ground up a while ago, but just not ground up. So just a half cup of those. We need our oat flour that we ground up. So same thing, different form. We also need some baking soda and baking powder. I'm sorry, not baking soda and baking powder. We need baking soda and salt. I don't know what I'm doing. When my legs start moving, my brain disengages. All right, a half teaspoon of salt. This is a 4th teaspoon, so I'll do 2 of these. And the same amount of soda. So half teaspoon of soda, half teaspoon of salt. I have my oven preheated to 325 degrees, so just know it doesn't go all the way up to 350. These are going to cook a little bit slower, Just give this a little mix so you don't have a blob of salt or a blob of baking soda in the mix to get a bite of later on. All right, we're going to add this directly to our dough that we've mixed up. And we're going to mix this once again. This doesn't have flour in it, so you're not going to risk making them tough by increasing the gluten in it. So that's the nice part about this. Now, if you have a stand mixer, feel free to use a stand mixer. It's really going to be about the same. I just like the feel of the hand mixer, mixing all those ingredients up every once in a while. All right, I'll say I'm finished with that mixer for right now. Now we are going to get a cup of chopped walnuts. And when I say chopped walnuts, I don't mean you have to chop them up fine. Basically, I mean look for the shells and kind of break them into quarters. But we want these kind of chunky. So basically, this is what we're looking for. Pieces about like that. So let me get these done. And by the way, there is a peanut allergy in the family as well. So not a full nut allergy, but just a severe peanut allergy in their family within their household. So what I want to do is make sure everything that I use, every ingredient, has a label on it, if possible, that says not used in a facility that processes peanuts as well. And the walnuts actually had that label on there. I know my chocolate chips do as well. Those are organic chocolate chips, and they have a no peanut promise on their bag. So if you have a peanut allergy, please take that seriously. They're not just kidding when they say, I'm kind of allergic to peanuts. And what they mean is, I will die if I have something with a peanut in it and I don't have my EpiPen with me. Our Bible study group is so considerate. They always make sure to tell people, because we eat together every Sunday evening as well after our Bible study, and we always make sure nothing in the house has a peanut in it. I think somebody accidentally brought something one time, but they felt so bad about it. But the person that had the allergy just went in the other room, because literally it is an airborne thing, and they could actually feel their throat or something being affected by it, which is quite scary. And I felt bad for both parties, because one person honestly just forgot. They were kind of new to the group, and the person affected by it felt bad because they couldn't stay in the same room where the food was. All right, 1 cup of chopped walnuts, and then we need a full cup of chocolate chips. And these are the chocolate chips I'm using, so you know. And I'm going to use a spatula and see if I can just stir these in. If you have friends or family or somebody that you know that has a gluten sensitivity, has celiac, has a gluten intolerance of any kind, you will make them a very, very happy person if you make these for them. They are such a beautiful consistency. They're not funky, they're not dry, they're not mushy, they're just perfect. Perfect consistency. I made these several times when I first discovered this recipe. This recipe eventually, I want to give credit to this guy. His name is Chef Brad, and he had a program called Fusion Grain Cooking, and he had a lot of great recipes, but when I saw that one, yeah, that's the one I printed out. I was quite interested in it because, again, I was very skeptical when I started out. This is not going to taste right. This is going to be weird. It's going to be one of those gluten-free things that I just don't like the texture to it or something. But I have so many people who are gluten-free asking for, you know, desserts and stuff to be made or something for some little event. I don't do big events. But when I tasted that, that was definitely one that I had to retain because I would be referring back to it several times. And now I get to share it with you, so I'm so excited. All right, I'm just getting the extra batter off this because I don't want to waste anything if it could be put into the cookie. We're going to use a rather big scoop for scooping these out, but using a cookie dough scoop just makes them a lot more uniform in size, and visually they just look better. But even if these come out looking like the shape of Idaho, they're going to be just as good as the one that's perfectly round. I'll try to scoop it off and make it level on the top when I lay them on the cookie sheet. And notice I put down new parchment on my baking sheet. Normally I just use parchment until it falls apart. But because these need to be gluten-free, I am keenly aware that most of the things, if not all of them, that I've put on that parchment until that point has flour in it. So it wouldn't do me a whole lot of good to make a gluten-free cookie if I'm going to put it on parchment that has flour all over it. So clean pan, clean parchment, peanut safe, and I would think these will be enjoyed a lot more. I wish I got bonus points for making a mess because I think I'd be the winner. I mean, it's not all over my counter, but I just stick my hands in everything. I'm leaving a little more room down at this end because I have a feeling I'm going to need to be putting some more cookies down there. I made a note when I made them the first time, and it said they made 57 of this size cookies if I made a full batch. So it'll make a little more than 2 dozen on making half a batch. All right, I think we're good. These are going to go in the oven at 325. We're going to bake them for about 10 to 12 minutes. We'll set it for 10 and we'll see what it looks like after that time, but we'll be right back and we'll show you what it looks like. All right, our timer has gone off on our oven, and actually it went off at 10 minutes. They didn't look right. They went off at another 2 minutes, so 12 minutes, and they still didn't look quite done, so I added 2 more minutes to it. So 14 minutes in the oven. We'll see what they look like. Now these will continue baking, of course, once we take them out of the oven, but I think they're done. All right, this is what we're looking at. And yes, they will still have a little shine to them. That's just the characteristic of oatmeal. It's not like flour. It hasn't absorbed all that liquid in there yet. So We're going to let these come to room temperature, and then I'll take a screenshot of the cookies for a thumbnail, but you can see how good they look then. But for right now, our cookies are done. I do hope you give these a try. Surprise someone who has a gluten intolerance. They will be ever so grateful for these. Now, again, if there's a nut allergy across the board, you got to leave the walnuts out. You can replace it with sunflower seeds or just something of your choice that doesn't have nuts in it. But these are some of the best cookies I've ever had. Now, I'm a cookie connoisseur, and I would say that given the option, these are probably one of the ones I would choose. Even though it's gluten-free, I still think the flavor of these is top-notch. So, hope you've enjoyed this video. We look forward to sharing something again with you real soon. See ya!